First on film and entertainment, busy times because the International Comedy Festival has been in full swing for, a couple of weeks or more. The number of invitations, it is so nice that people want us to go along to their shows. It's virtually impossible, though, as one human being to be at every single performance of every show. It's kind of fascinating because you've got the people who are the repeats, and then you've got those who come along. Fresh talent is always terrific. And I want to encourage people, for example, who are graduates from the VCA, Victorian College of the Arts, or from WAPA. I mean, I've seen quite a bit of their material and I've been particularly impressed. Very, very hard to, even once you've gone to one of these institutions, to get a regular gig because, being an actor, being a producer, being a director, being a scriptwriter, hard work. Talk about script writers. Peter Krause, you've written the script to your life, have you not?
I'm sure I have. I'm just waiting for the movie to come out.
Well, I was going to say, I reckon we need to make a movie about you because I think you see more film than anybody that I know, and your whole life is dedicated to cinema. So that's somebody somewhere will get a camera out of the attic and shoot a feature film about you. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, it would be incredible. I can see the Oscar nominations now.
Well, who's going to play Peter Krause, though? Who's going to want to play Peter Krause? Maybe that's the question.
David Wenham? Who knows?
David Wenham. Greg King, what do you reckon? Peter Krause as channeled by David Wenham, would it work?
I don't know. He'd probably a bit of makeup there, wouldn't he? I think Russell Crowe. I think the New Zealander Russell Crowe.
I think you did. Very good. Chapman Hamilton you are hearing from. Yes, indeed. We'll never let you live that down, Peter. He's part Kiwi, part Australian now, is he not?
It depends which part you're looking at.
Oh, please. This is a G-rated program.
He's Australian when he's winning Oscars. He's New Zealand when he's throwing phones at hotel clubs.
Oh, I see. Very good. Okay. We are going to talk about both cinema and theatre because Jackie's had the good fortune to go along and see a couple of shows that I have seen. But we're going to start with a movie that is particularly long. And as those of you who do listen to the program more regularly will know, I usually find anything over 90 minutes challenges me. When this is double that amount, well, it's 179 minutes, this was always going to be an enormous challenge. I speak of Beau is Afraid. I was afraid before I actually walked into the cinema. It is R-rated, but it is starring one of the finest actors of the generation, our generation, Joaquin Phoenix. Very, very impressive. He really is. Plays Beau Wasserman, has issues, having a very, very bad few days. He's anxiety-riddled, and he's got a therapist, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, who prescribes new medication ahead of a planned visit that dear Beau is making to his wealthy and successful 70-year-old mother, Mona, which we see her later in the film, played by Patti LuPone. She has been a massive controlling influence in Beau's life because he never knew his dad. All is now in readiness for the trip that he's about to take, the following day, in fact. Then everything goes pear-shaped. In fact, anything that possibly could go wrong does. A large contributing factor is that Beau lives in a neighbourhood from hell. That's the only way I can think of describing it. It's where the world's flotsam and jetsam appear to have descended in en masse. And obviously, as a result of all of this, the intended break goes awry. And Beau ends up in the company of benevolent strangers. I speak of Grace, Amy Ryan, and Roger, Nathan Lane. We haven't seen Nathan Lane for seemingly forever in film. So it was great. I thought of the birdcage immediately. He's got that smirk on his face as well. Anyway, the two of them, Grace and Roger, put up Beau. And they put him up in their troubled teenage daughter, Tony's room. Tony played by Kylie Rogers. And that merely serves to further ostracize her. She's got teenage angst and all sorts of things going on there. These are rather unusual parents, we shall say that. And they've actually memorialised their dead war hero's son. the couple that I'm speaking of, Grace and Roger, have also taken in the fellow soldier to their dead son, fellow soldier called Jeeves, played by Dennis Menashet. And he's got major mental health issues. So as this story unfolds, we get to see a young Beau Wasserman, his awkward interaction with his first and only girlfriend, Elaine. And Elaine is played as a younger person by Julia Antonelli and as an older person by Parker Posey. And this is a really convoluted plot, but with the introduction that I've given you now, I reckon I've just brushed the surface. It's an increasingly zany piece of work, Beau is Afraid, which I reckon starts with a heck of a lot of promise. I thought the first act was an absolute beauty, highly creative, intense, off the wall, and dangerously funny. And it's helped a great deal by the fine actor that Joaquin Phoenix is. His sort of nonplussed expressions serve to heighten the impact. And I think they're actually helped by the close-up cinematography favoured by Pavel Pagorzel. How do you pronounce his name, Peter? Pagorzelski, who did the movie Fresh, which was quite different in its own way. So I really appreciated the cinematography. But, and there's a big but, Ari Aster, who did Midsummer, is the one who's behind this, and he has crafted a challenging, decidedly confrontational, increasingly obtuse script, which, well, unfortunately loses its way. Does it not, Gregory King?
Slightly does lose its way a little bit. This is a completely bonkers, surreal, bloated pitch black of a circus comedy. It's not really a horror film, though, which Astor is more known for, Hereditary and Midsummer. But it's more of a disturbing Kafkaesque nightmare full of Freudian overtones. And it reminded me a little bit of Darren Aronofsky's equally bizarre film Mother, which you might remember from a few years ago. And also a bit of David Lynch weirdness thrown in there as well. And the film taps into our contemporary fears that modern cities are dangerous places to live. I agree that the place where Beau lives, a seedy apartment above a porn theatre, is not the most salubrious environment there. And
could you imagine, Greg, you live in a city, mate. Could you imagine living in a place like that, honestly?
No, my place is a lot more cleaner and a bit safer, Alex, but the area he's living in is populated by deadbeats, drug addicts, hookers, and there's even a naked serial killer running around stabbing people there. Look, I enjoyed the first hour or so of this film, the first couple of acts there, but I thought the longer it went on, the sillier and more incomprehensible it became. But you're right, Joaquin Phoenix does a superb job there. He conveys all his anxiety, his mental troubles there, and he's obviously got a troubled relationship with his mother there. A lot of unresolved issues there, which seem to be the source of most of his anxieties and phobias. He's got more phobias and neuroses than you can put a stick at there. I thought Nathan Lane was slightly creepy as the doctor there. There is an extended animation sequence from Chilean animators Joaquin Casina and Cristobal Leon that shows Beau on an odyssey to reconnect with his family, which was interesting, but I don't know.
I struggled with that, Greg. I
know. It was interesting the way they put it together there. And I agree with you. It's beautifully shot there by his regular cinematographer, Pavel Pogzelski. And I like the production design from Fiona Crombie that created the grungy look of Beau's seedy apartment building there. Look, this is a film that will confound, bemuse, and disturb audiences. It's going to polarize audiences, Alex. But the first hour or so is really interesting and full of pitch-black humour, and I enjoyed that part of it. But after he left the Nathan Lane's family, it sort of lost me a little bit.
Yep. I agree, and I don't think it needed to be 3 hours, Greg. Did it?
No.
So, yeah. But Peter, you're the sort of person who is going to say to me, this is a piece of magnificence, of art, sustains 179 minutes, are you not?
You've just read my review.
Well, sorry.
Let me also say to you that this is also what a Jacqueline Hamilton would say. Is that correct, Jacqueline?
That'd be correct, Alex.
There you go. So, Greg, what do we do with these recalcitrant reviewers? How do we take them out?
People are going to respond to this film in different ways, Alex. I understand that some people are going to love it, Some people are going to loathe it, and some people are going to go, But yeah, I just didn't think it needed to be 3 hours. There was a lot of interesting ideas in there. He throws everything at the screen. Not all of it sticks. But yeah, so look, I know it's going to polarize audience. I know some people really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a small audience film. Let's be honest. If it wasn't Joaquin Phoenix,
What's wrong with being about 3'6"?
Sorry?
You said it's going to be a small audience film. What's wrong with being about 3'6"?
Oh my golly!
And it's a dad joke.
It's a
That's sad dad joke.
very, very sad, Gregory. All right, Peter, on your horse, mate. You can go for it. Why should we see 3 hours of this movie?
Because this is a film that I have retitled Beau is going through a Freudian existential mental health journey. Everything that we see on screen, and the way I interpret this film, is through his eyes, which means he is going through a mental health breakdown. And so everything that we see is not realistic. It is through his perspective. And that's what I found so interesting about this journey, is that he goes through hell, he goes through all sorts of difficult experiences, and he has clearly mother complex issues that are well developed, but he also has issues with women in general. And a lot of women treat him badly, or he perceives them to treat him badly. There is an extended sequence, which I found very Shakespearean in many respects, where he is part of a theatre presentation, a theatre performance, which I thought was a brilliant bit of staging and mimicked his own particular mental journey. Look, there is so much to admire about this film. Yes, it is long, but it is very involving. And just like Homer's Odyssey and all sorts of Greek tragedies and other sort of journeys that people with mental health breakdowns have, this film is quite a revelation. And Ari Aster, who is very good at depicting horror in terms of Midsummer and Hereditary, has done an excellent job with looking at the horror of the mind and how it can play terrible tricks on you. So I was very impressed by Beau is Afraid. And yes, you have to go into this film very carefully and be prepared. It is not a film for everyone, but I think it is quite a terrific exploration of someone's inner demons.
Would you agree it is a very small audience film, though?
Well, yes, but so what? So in a sense, so is Everything Everywhere All at Once, but that took off as a cult film.
Well, I wouldn't. You think this is going to take off as a cult film? I don't think it will. I don't think it's got a snowball's open hell of taking off as a cult, as a large audience cult film. Small audience, yeah, maybe. But I mean, are you equating this to Everything Everywhere All at Once?
To some extent, yes, because it has a similarly convoluted sort of plot line, and we don't necessarily understand what we're seeing on screen and why we're seeing it. So, yes, I think there are some correlations there.
Okay, well, Jackie, do you? Let's start there. Do you think this is a cult film?
Yes, I'm going to absolutely applaud everything Peter said. I totally saw it the same way as he saw it. Whether or not it's a cult film, we'll find out, down the track. But all the things that Peter has mentioned, I endorse. And I would add that, I don't think there's a minute to get bored in this film. So I don't understand how you could say the first third or whatever was fine and from there it just went on, because it just keeps revelation after revelation, and it builds and it builds. And it's one of the few films of this type that I've seen that packs so much in and then ends so memorably. I mean, it doesn't just fizzle out.
Does it end memorably? I didn't think it was all.
Absolutely.
I thought it became
just comes together.
Ridiculous. It became. I mean, the whole idea to scramble your mind, to screw with your head. Is that reason enough to make a movie?
Well, they're not necessarily. No, that's not the reason for the movie. Don't be silly. It's
not being silly. I'm being
giving us insight into his scrambled mind, into his permanently dazed and confused condition, into his nightmare, which is kind of a comedy to us, and the complexities and what he faces and what he's come from, and perhaps what, maybe some is mental health and some is caused by parental cruelty verging on abuse, and stories he's been told, and therefore what he's taken into and forms the kind of person he becomes, which just becomes more and more entrenched with the life that he lives. I just found, and visually there is so much in this film. You've mentioned a few scenes. The animation, I thought the animation was a brilliant kind of subplotted satellite kind of film with it, as was the theatre performance, where he sees what his life perhaps could have been, and you can feel the ache within him for what he could have had, and he can see it, but he never just did have that. And I think there are just so many stories and so many different ways to tell it within this film that I couldn't see a minute in which you could possibly be bored.
Yeah, well, I did find that there were periods which were just elongated unnecessarily, and I thought they could have trimmed or cut out altogether. But, okay, given all of that, well, let's start with the good. Peter, score out of 10 for a movie that will appeal to some people.
A superb film. Jackie, I agree with your comments as well, and the animation also fitted in beautifully. 9 out of 10 from me.
Wow. Okay. 9 out of 10. Gee whiz. All right. Jackie, where do you go with this?
I'm very close to that. I'm on an 8.5 out of 10.
And Beau is afraid. 8.5 out of 10.
I was afraid. Yeah. And might I also say, what you said first up, Alex, Joaquin Phoenix, I mean, just an absolutely outstanding performance. He is so credible in this really very odd personality role. I just thought he was absolutely brilliant. I think it's his career best, really, from what I've seen.
Well, I think he's a magnificent actor, and he inhabits the character, and you believe that he is Beau, which is exactly what you want. Okay, Gregory King, you and I are going to be much more aligned on scores here. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I agree with what Jackie said. Though the film relies a lot on Joaquin Phoenix's performance. He seems to be drawn towards these edgy characters, and he's on screen for much of the time, and he's really committed to the performance there. It's really intense and emotionally draining there. But as I said, I found some of it just a little bit off-putting there. I'm going to give it 6 out of 10.
I'm giving it 6.5. So there we go. It really splits us, and I was so excited about the first 45 minutes, and then maybe even an hour, and it then started to lose me, and then by the end it totally lost me. So there we go. All right, JF 88 FM. We've had an R-rated movie we've just spoken about. Let's talk about a good person. I'm not just talking about you, Jackie. I'm talking about the name of a movie which is MA rated, and it's 128 minutes long. Broken, bruised, beaten. I'm not talking about the St Kilda Football Club, Greg. I speak of, and this is in previous years, I speak of a person called Alison, played by Florence Pugh, who's this beautiful, talented, intelligent woman in her mid-20s after a catastrophic incident. And there's this before and after Alison. The before, well, person with joie de vivre, confidence, whole life in front of her. Engaged to be married to her soulmate, Nathan, played by Chinese Uchi. Then a moment of distraction changes all of that. Alison is addicted to oxycodone. Her life's spiraled out of control. She falls deeper and deeper into the mire. Self-loathing is her middle name. Overtures from her mother Diane, played by Molly Shannon, summarily dismissed. The man who helps rescue her has his own bucket full of pain. Tired cop, Vietnam War vet, Daniel, played by Morgan Freeman, was a physically abusive father, an alcoholic estranged from his son. Now he's all at sea, trying to single-handedly bring up his out-of-control 16-year-old granddaughter, Ryan, played by Celeste O'Connor, who has lost her parents. So Alison and Daniel's lives intersect and collide. Their anguish and that of their nearest and dearest are palpable. Now, okay, I could see, and I've deliberately been careful about what parts of the narrative I've let loose because I want you to see it and, be surprised when you go along and see a good person. But look, I could see myself being pulled one way and then the other while I was watching a good person. I was cognizant of that. But I was nevertheless heavily invested in the journey that the writer and director Zach Braff created. Didn't he do A Garden State all those years ago?
Yes.
It was 2 decades ago. Good golly. Anyway, I enormously appreciate the stellar talents. Every time I see Florence Pugh, she just gets better and better. And Morgan Freeman, I mean, wow. The two of them on screen together, superb. Their talents are on display again here. Their ability to be in the moment, to capitalize on emotional intensity is what elevates this pair to the highest echelon of actors, the pantheon of actors, shall we say. And you've got Pugh as Alison, being vulnerable, lost, fearful. She just wants to find a way for her pain to go away, and it simply will not. And then you got Freeman as Daniel, a man with profound regrets and frustration, someone who, like Alison, has to learn to live with the pain that he has inflicted. So it's a film that asks the question, how can one move on? And it's a tale that resonates because it's slice of life material. A split second can change everything. Many flounder. Some survive, others do not. So, I mean, I said to you, it's a film that is manipulative, and you could argue every film is, but you can see it here, and you can see it in a lot of movies, and that really puts me off. It didn't this time. I found it deeply affecting, and I was quite emotionally invested in this movie. Jackie, you?
Oh, yes. I agree with you, Alex. As well as being emotionally invested, I was able to sit back and say, oh, they're really, really pulling on the heartstrings here and pushing that a bit far. So I did like that it was, there were a lot of times of really raw emotion coming out that you could imagine would be quite real. And it did actually make me wonder whether it might be based on truth, or on a true episode, or whether they had done a lot of research with people who had been in that situation. There were a lot of times where it got quite ugly in its honesty and that rawness, pretty brutal in the home truths, but there again, it would swing around again and sort of be quite heartwarming. The relationships were interesting, and I agree with you that together, Florence Pugh is just stunning, and Morgan Freeman was just magnificently expressive and understated through most of this in his very expert ability. Prescription pills addiction is a horrible thing, and it gives the film a kind of a sense of being worthwhile, if you like, and maybe a worthwhile film might lose a point for trying a bit hard, but it was well done.
It really is interesting because when they make slice of life movies, you sort of wonder, well, why do you want to see this? You hear it on the news all the time, but you just see. Do you agree with me, Peter, that Florence Pugh as an actor, it is astounding for somebody so young to be so invested in the roles? I want to see. I'm longing to see the next Florence Pugh movie. That I walk out of this and think I've got to see the next one. How do you feel about her as an actor?
Oh, she's very impressive. An Irish actress who has really transcended into international roles, and she has done a brilliant job. It's interesting how this film, a little bit like Beau is Afraid, also deals with psychological breakdown and mental health issues related to an incident and the idea of possible redemption. Zach Braff has dealt in his films, Wish I Was Here and Garden State, as you mentioned, and this one, A Good Person, in issues related to damaged people and how these damaged people can still find ways to move forward, possibly. This film is very impressive in some respects and also a little bit melodramatic and emotional in other respects. I like the storyline. I like the metaphor that is created in the film with the model trains that Morgan Freeman runs in his basement. And the whole idea that the film starts and ends with the idea that a train that has a community that moves forward is a way of resolving any sort of personal issues, potentially, for people who are undergoing all sorts of difficulties and problems. It's interesting, too, that a good person is a line that is referred to by Morgan Freeman's character. He says, "I am a good person." And then the inference is, I hope that you can be one as well. So I think there's a lot to admire about this film, about the metaphors that abound in the film, and a little bit less so in terms of some of the melodrama that does perhaps Zach Braff could have restrained a little bit. But overall, I think this is quite a good film dealing with grief, responsibility, and redemption from a tragic circumstance.
And Greg,
I haven't seen this one yet, Alice.
Okay, no problems at all. Well, look, let's get... I suspect that given what we've all said about it, our scores are likely to be reasonably similar. But let's start off with you, Peter.
Look, I liked it. I gave it 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Jackie?
I liked it. I gave it 6 out of 10.
And I liked it, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. So there we go. A Good Person, MA rated. Now, a movie that's been around for a few weeks that I only got to see about eight days ago, I think. Now, we didn't get to it last week, and we were going to, called Broker. Now, it's M-rated, and this is also a long film at 129 minutes. A baby box in South Korea where women can leave newborns to be picked up and cared for by people who care, right? That's the starting point for what is a really powerful journey involving a mother that abandoned her bub, the men who took her, and the police who are following the case. The woman is So Young, that's the character's name, played by Lee Ji-yeon. And as the movie unfolds, we hear more about her backstory. The men who took the infant is named Woo Sung, intending to sell her to the highest bidder are Sang Hyun, played by Song Kang-ho, and Dong Soo, played by Gang Dong Won. Now, the first of these guys, runs a laundry business, Sang Hyun, but is constantly saddled with debt. The latter, Dong Soo, grew up in an orphanage, works in this facility that houses the baby box. The day after this young lady, So Young, leaves her child, she returns to collect the tiny tot. And when she realises that this baby has been taken, she's about to call the police, when the two men who did the deed tell her everything. Now, unlikely as this seems, So Young ends up joining the pair in their pursuit to find new parents for the littling. And all the while telling them are police detectives, one played by Doona Bae and a younger colleague, Lee Ju-young. And they hope to catch the perpetrators in the act of selling the child and basically with that wrap up their half-year investigation into these men. There is a lot more in Broker than at first meets the eye. I really appreciated the way the movie was written and performed. Quite revelatory, actually. And we're drip-fed information about all the main players as the narrative develops. Initial harsh judgment is tempered by the circumstances and the fact that, notwithstanding their intent, the perpetrators are not viewed as traditional villains. Now, the man behind the film as a writer and director, is Koreeda Hirokazu, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes back in 2018 for the movie Shoplifters, which was really, really strong. And there's a lot of nuance and surprises in Broker. I really like the older baby broker with a sense of benevolence. His partner makes it clear there's nothing worse than abandonment because of his own circumstances. And there's a really tough resilience about the characterization of the mother, the So Young character by Lee Ji, and a determination about the work that the detectives are also doing. So I thought that Broker was quite a mature, quite an accomplished piece of work from a writer and director who really is at the top of his game. That's the way that I viewed Broker. What about you, Peter?
Oh, I was very impressed by this film. It's interesting how this Japanese filmmaker, this is his second foreign language film after making the French film The Truth with Catherine Deneuve. And what he likes exploring in his films is the idea of dysfunctional families that can actually come together and have some sort of cohesion. And that's certainly the case in Broker. This whole idea of there being no villains really in this film. I mean, the woman giving up her child at birth and then perhaps reconsidering, but really understanding that her child would not have a good life unless it was adopted by a good family, etc. Is very impressive. And I like the idea of this group of brokers who came together as a sort of ersatz family, which is what the director likes to put together in his films, ersatz families that can function well. Really strong story, really well directed, and I love the way the story developed into something that was very affirming and positive, so that children who are in a situation, or babies who are put in this circumstance, are not given up to the state and possibly put into dire circumstances at times, but are adopted by families that can truly look after this baby that the mother no longer is capable of looking after herself. So I really like this film because of its character study, because of its connection with family, and the way it resolves all the issues so beautifully in the film.
Jackie, do you think that Broker is a movie that everybody will relate to, or again, it's going to be a limited appeal type movie?
I would like to think that people would listen to and read positive reviews of this film and step out of what might be their comfort zone in film watching and see this, because it looks to not be your mainstream kind of film. But once you see it, it has a lot to say to the average person. And I've got nothing but love for Broker. I thought it was beautifully put together, beautifully filmed, beautiful characters, a great story, a great depth. As Peter said, obvious, positive. And it has a very light touch. There's a lot of comedy in this film. There's a lot to enjoy and actually laugh out loud at. And all those gaps that one wonders about through the film all come through, and it all rounds out in the end. So it's just beautifully constructed film, Broker. Yep.
There are surprises there, aren't there? I mean, at every turn, and this is what makes the film. You don't want predictability. You want something that's a little bit different, and this is decidedly so, which is really commendable, is it not, Greg?
Yeah, it's an interesting film. Gives you some insight into something, way of life in Korea that we didn't know about, especially the baby adoptions and no baby boxes, which I hadn't heard of. But this is similar to Hirasaki's films, which follow characters on the outside or the figures of society. But it focuses on family values, as Peter and Jackie have said there, and the importance of connection there. And it's a slow-moving but thought-provoking drama, and it's also got some of the tropes of the road movie genre here, as the characters come together and sort of form an unofficial family there. It's unhurried, and it allows audiences trying to get to know these flawed characters. And the director explores their internal struggles, conflicted emotional journeys, but he's not judgmental in his approach to the characters. It's observational at times, and it handles the film's complex issues and themes with empathy, compassion, and as Danny pointed out, there are some generous doses of humour here and solid performances all around. And it's been beautifully shot, I think, by cinematographer Hong Ho, who's done films for Bong Joon-ho like Parasite and Snowpiercer. So yeah, it's a winner. But again, it's one of those slow burn films that allows you to get to understand the characters and what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you really, once you become invested, you really are heavily invested in it. So let's start with you then, Greg. A score out of 10 for this particular film.
I'll give it 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10, okay. And I think, Jackie, you'll go higher.
Oh, yes, I'll go a lot higher. And I remember Shoplifters very well. I love that. And I love the family connection in that film where you don't have to be family by blood. It's by being together and fitting in together. So Broker has the same kind of theme. I've given Broker a 9 out of 10.
Wow. Okay. Peter.
And similarly, just like Beau is Afraid, an incredible film, 9 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. So coming between you and Gregory. So, but very, very worthwhile. No question about that at all. Now, we are moving on JAir 88 FM from film to theatre. And Jackie, you went along with me to see, firstly, we don't say this a lot, an original musical made in Australia. And we start here by looking back at a movie that was Oscar nominated. In fact, it was, pardon me, nominated for 8 Academy Awards, and I speak of David Lynch's 1980 dramatic biographical film, The Elephant Man. So, from recollection, that was Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt, was it not? So, that movie remains seared into my consciousness. It really had a huge impact. Anne Bancroft was there, John Gielgud as well. And now this clever and creative group of writers and composers, Mark Lucchesi, Sarah Nandakoppen, and husband Jayan Nandakoppen, have taken the essence of the story and twisted it and turned it into, well, I think a highly entertaining and engaging musical dramedy. So I'm talking about The Marvellous Elephant Man, the musical. That's how it's been retitled. The Marvellous Elephant Man, the musical. It is on at Chapel Off Chapel. And I think there's a great deal of genius about this show, Jackie. The story remains moving and meaningful, but it's also risque and irreverent the way that they've put it together. And you've got John Merrick, played by Ben Clark, who's a human freak, and I use the word freak in inverted commas, abandoned by his mother, a prostitute, and exploited for his physical deformity. He's actually like a circus show oddity pointed to and laughed at. He's rescued, again in inverted commas, by an eminent surgeon called Dr. Treves, played by Canon Breen. His intention, though, or intentions plural, are anything but laudable. Hope for John Merrick comes by way of a nurse of that name, Nurse Hope, played by Annalise Hall, who sees behind the physical and enables Merrick's inner self to bloom. So that's The Marvellous Elephant Man. Before I give my thoughts, I'm interested in yours, Jackie. We sat near the top of Chapel Off Chapel in the theatre there. And what did you think of the show?
Well, your reference there to sitting in near the top, I was actually in the back row, and that gave me the opportunity to see what it was like from way up there in the nosebleeds. And the big problem with seeing the play was that the problem was the staging. Most of the action took place in the front half of the stage. Well, it's not a stage, it's floor level. And there's two sections of raised stage towards the back. And if the action had been on those raised platforms, I would have been able to see it. But as it was, being on the floor, I could only ever see the actors from the chest up. So that didn't work when there were incidents where, for example, they fell to the ground and things were going on the floor and they were out of view. So I couldn't see how you could stage a play where half the audience couldn't see the actors, and yet we saw the orchestra in full glory for the entire duration.
But you have really commented on what you did say, because I sat literally about 20 meters from you, 20 feet from you actually, and I managed to see most of it without any problem. I I couldn't see their feet. In fact, somebody said to me afterwards, "Did you see those really shiny red shoes?" And I said, "No." But apart from that, I really think that the musical works on so many levels. Do you? I mean, forget about.
Well, I thought that, Alex, the first half was great fun, great lyrics, some really great vocal range by the singers. Good fun, as you said, irreverent and cheeky and clever, really clever. And when I heard the title of The Marvelous Elephant Man, the musical, I thought, how are they going to do this? I really couldn't imagine how this could come together. And it was terrific. And then the second half after interval, I felt that it was a complete loss. It didn't take the story any further. I didn't even really understand, and it dragged, and it sort of became this romance that just kind of kept limping along. And if they'd left it at up to interval, I would have been much more impressed.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I didn't feel that way. I really think that it needed to. I thought it did develop, but I mean, I found it engaging. It's ebullient. It's dramatic. It's dastardly, and it's also bawdy and belligerent. So all of those ingredients sort of came together. Musically, really melodic and lyrical. It ticked all the right boxes as far as that's concerned. And I found myself heavily drawn to and invested in the tunes. I mean, a surefire of my involvement. I actually wanted to buy an album featuring all the songs. A number of those would have become earworms. So they've done a really good job there. The stagecraft, the vocal strength, the saxophonist credentials of Mark Lachesi, who plays the ringmaster among several diverse characters, make him an instant hit. Wasn't he fantastic? Major.
Oh, it is terrific. Absolutely terrific.
You realise this is the first attempt at a musical. I think that's, I mean, like, I was blown away by that. And he
terrific voice. Yep.
Yeah, much to do with the success of this particular piece. Mark Lachesi, Luccehesi, that's his surname. And Canon Breen, well, didn't he drip with this supercilious ability? I mean, that's exactly what you want.
Oh, there were great characterizations in it, for sure.
Yeah, and milked his stage persona for all it was worth. And as Dr. Treves, the sort of arrogance and entitlement for his middle names. You know what I thought of, Jackie? He brings back a bygone era when patrons used to boo and hiss and throw rotten fruit at actors. That's what, you know. It's you know, Dudley Do Right in the that was one of our cartoons that we grew up with, wasn't it, Greg? Dudley Do Right? No,
what's it wrong here? And
who was the cartoon character who used to sort of play with his moustache? It was a bad guy. I don't even remember who that was. Anyway, that's what he reminded me of. Did that not sort of set you off a little bit, Jackie, in terms of the Canon Breen character?
Oh, I agree. Great characters. I enjoyed the characters, the lyrics. It was very good writing.
Yeah, very good writing.
But as I say, it was the second half that I just felt, perhaps I felt the first half was very clever, and then the second half just kind of went slapstick silly.
Well, Annalise Hall has this really sweet, mellifluous voice, channeling this wholesome, angelic, temperamentally sound character, and she really did personify beauty and love in their purest forms. That was her role, and she did it very well. And finally, we talk about the Elephant Man, Ben Clark. He didn't need prosthetics to win his way into our hearts. Vocally, artistically, I thought he excelled from the opening number. He really readily projected vulnerability, fear and substance. And again, he played that beautifully. So they, together with a really talented ensemble, an accomplished band, they sort of breathed life anew into a story of oppression and exile, life and love. And the dramaturgy is by Guy Masterson, strong direction from Christopher Mitchell and Masterson, and the choreography, there were some dance sequences there. Eden Reed was responsible for that. I thought that was a treat. And the spotlighting was really good, a feature of the production. But the staging, I agree, Jackie, could certainly have been improved, because the band was slightly elevated, and then that was on a stage left, and then stage right, at the same height, you had this level that was used by actors in certain scenes. But yeah, you're right, much of the action took place at ground level. Wouldn't have been a problem in another theatre. And I've got to be fair here, because we saw it on opening night, and I spoke to the producer, and he was really grateful and said that he would do something about it. So I hope that I don't doubt that if you put an elevated platform in that entire area, that would address that problem. And so to me, it was a really easy fix. So, I mean, I would call it it's noteworthy. Obviously, we both saw the same thing, but in the sum total of it, it's a small, if somewhat frustrating gripe that could readily be addressed. Would you agree with that or not?
Well, for me, it was a big problem because I didn't see the performance as it should have been seen.
Okay, fair enough.
And it was it wasn't as much visual as verbal, if you like, because I thought the lyrics were the strongest part of it.
Yep.
But I should have been able to see the cast.
Well, it is a fresh Australian work about which we should be mighty proud, and it deserves a bigger stage and a worldwide audience. I can see this going elsewhere. I can really see this transposing, because The Elephant Man is such a heart-stringing type story, and they've really twisted it. Whether or not they'd get the sense of humour, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I think it does want an international audience. Do you not agree with that?
Not willing to make a judgment on that one, but why not?
I think so. All right. So, look, that's the marvellous Elephant Man, the musical.
Alex, so before you move on, the villain in W. Right was called Snidely Whiplash.
Thank you so much, Greg. Yes, I used to watch that. I loved it. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yeah, some of them were quite funny and entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. And Jackie, you're just about old enough. Did you watch that or not?
No.
Oh,
No, I watched Gilligan's Island.
yes, but this is a cartoon. Did you have a disrupted childhood where you weren't allowed to watch cartoons?
That's absolutely correct.
There you go.
Not even the Flintstones. That was around that time.
Yes, I watched the Flintstones, but that must have been just on the odd occasion, because we were allowed to watch 1.5 hour program before the news went on at 7:00, the ABC News. That was it. TV was evil.
Is that wow? Okay. And what about you, Peter? The evil one. What did you watch?
I remember all thinking that I liked a lot of the animations. I especially liked the Jetsons, actually. I think that was a lot of fun.
I agree. But my favourite was the Flintstones as well, Greg. I thought they were fantastic. But I mean, it's funny. I enjoyed them at the time. I remember seeing these shows, and I thought, wow, these are really good. But as years go by, the fondness has, if anything, even grown. And maybe that's just the way it is. As you get older, you memorialise things that may not have been quite as good as you remember them to be. But anyway,
I like the Looney Tunes, the Roadrunners and that as well. I like them.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about Berlin, Jackie. MC Showroom, which is round the corner from Chapel off Chapel, literally less than half a kilometre away. Anyway, Joanna Murray-Smith's remarkable insight, her attention to detail, writing prowess, front and centre, captivating production of Berlin at this venue, at the MC Showroom. An Australian called Tom, played by Lachlan Hamill, was just landed in the German capital, keen to get to know the real city rather than just the tourist offering. He's directed to this small watering hole where he meets and is immediately drawn to a local bar worker called Charlotte, played by Georgia Latchford. We're talking 1:00 in the morning now, and the place is closed, the establishment, just the two of them at her place, and she's offered him her couch for the night. So their chat becomes playful and vigorous. They dance around each other in an attempt to get to know each other better. The spark between them is tangible as they reveal snippets about themselves. She's a student and writer. She's keen to become a poet. He says he's into industrial espionage. And as Tom tries to get her into bed, they appear to have similar musical tastes. She matches him stride for stride in conversation. She's very, very good at that. And they talk about their recent dating history. We learn that her parents separated when she was only 7 years of age. Her father is a hedge fund guy living in London. Her mother is a narcissistic sculptor in Bern. Now, she was 6 when her 4-year-old brother was killed in a tragic accident after he chased a ball onto the street. He received a little windfall after he was involved in a fatal car crash. I speak about Tom. Now, we find out that he is in fact Jewish on his mother's side, and that he decided to visit Germany because his great-grandfather used to live there. Then the inevitable happens. But it's once the deed is done that things change considerably. And that happens when she catches him out on his mobile phone, and thereafter the truth outs. The ugly past very much brought into the present. So you got tragedy, exploitation, and morality as the resounding themes. And this, by the way, was inspired by a family trip that Joanna Murray Smith did or took. Extraordinary piece of writing, I thought. Sizzling tale of morass and morality, resplendent with intellectual rigour, that really eats into one's soul. It causes one to reflect, to think and feel as the two protagonists go toe-to-toe for 75 minutes. So a lot of words, a lot of verbiage, nuances, expressions and pauses that the actors bring to the production are really important. And what a mature, top-notch performance by Georgia Latchford. She's got that down pat. Word perfect. You and I both saw the preview performance. I thought she was outstanding, Jackie.
Oh, she absolutely is. Very assured. And to the point where her intonation and accent, German intonation and accent were, I couldn't tell if she actually was German or
no,
Australian.
I sort of, you and I both thought the same thing afterwards. We've got to seek her out to see, she was having a conversation. We were trying to listen in as to whether she was an Aussie or a native born German. I mean, that's the sign of, she's a young woman, probably mid to late 20s, I would imagine. And what a brilliant career she's got in front of her if this is any guide.
Yet even with all the German accent, we didn't miss a word of what she was saying. Clear as a bell and beautifully projected voice she had, which was really important because, as you say, verbal base. Gosh, it was only about the talking. There was really not much actually physically happens apart from a bit of alcohol drinking and putting on an LP to play.
Well, there's a little love and romance, but there you go. But most of the time, you're quite right. I mean, she really inhabited her character with poise and polish. But Lachlan Hamill, I mean, there's no doubt he's got boyish charm, which is what his character is infused with, and he brings Tom's yin to Charlotte's yang. And there's much more in this again than at first meets the eye as a piece of work. Hamill readily channels the mood swings, that sort of changing countenance that's essential to this work. When we saw it, I thought he could slow down a tad and let his words and intonation breathe. That was my take on it. What would you have said?
Yes, he could have, but there again, he was very genuinely inhabiting the character of a young guy who was a little bit nervous. He'd just met her. He was, he was bit of a fish out of water. And when you're nervous, you do talk more quickly. And so it was quite fair that he did. No, I thought he did a good job. He brought out our character to Tom very well.
Yeah, I mean, both he and Latchford particularly strong in the game of seduction. I thought that was terrific, and in stating their respective positions in character when it counts. So the director's Erica Chestnut crafted a really fine adaptation of Berlin. Great little venue, isn't it? The MC Showroom. It's
an intimate place, yeah, very.
It's terrific. On there till the 30th of April. So, folks, please go along and see this. It is a really, really worthwhile show. Just out of interest, if you were to score out of 10, Jackie, what would you have given Berlin?
I'd give it a good 7.5.
I reckon it's higher than that. I really do. I think it's well worth seeing, folks. And please, young people on the go, you can really see where the future of Australian theatre and entertainment is with a show like Berlin. So go and see Berlin, go and see The Marvellous Elephant Man, and consider some of the films that we've spoken about. We've got to go, folks. So thank you very much, Peter, Greg and Jackie, or Jackie, Greg and Peter, or in whichever order you wish. We'll do it all again next week. First on Film and Entertainment, signing off.